Hi, I'm Rainer, and welcome to my train room. I have a package that showed up in the mail a couple days ago, and I know what it is because I ordered it, and it's something I bought on eBay. So we'll see what I ended up with and how good this is. But let's see how many white popcorns are going there. I just bought myself another Proto 2000 GP7 locomotive for Algoma Central. Now, I already have one of these locomotives right here, number 160, beautiful running machine. Now, that one did end up with the typical cracked gear problem that these Proto 2000s are known for. I fixed it very simply by putting in an Athearn gear and a wheel set. So we're hoping this one doesn't have that problem, but if it is, it's an easy fix as well. So I'm going to also need to put a decoder in this as well. I've got one dug out here, so I'm going to be doing that shortly. It looks like it's all here. You can't really tell if it's actually brand new unused. It kind of looks like it is. So that's good. So we will see how this works out. Here is the locomotive. I'm going to put it on the track and test it out in DC form before I even put the body shell on, because I want to see how it runs and make sure everything's good before I go and put a decoder in. Decoder is pretty easy on these. You just unplug this unit and plug a new one in, and I know from experience I need to put a resistor in for the lights, because on that one, when I put the decoder in, both of the lights blew. So I'm going to test it first to see if everything is working, and if it is, I will put a decoder in and get it up and running on DCC. So yes, once I put this locomotive on the track, it definitely had an issue with the gears on all four axles. And here are the original axles. All of the gears were cracked, and I know you're not going to be able to see this in the camera, but it's pretty obvious when you look at them in person. Especially if you look at them under a magnifying glass or something like that. But every one of these gears has a crack running lengthwise through the gear, somewhere around the gear. And every one of them is cracked like that. So what happens is the spacing between these two gears is just a little bit larger than it's supposed to be, and that's why it makes that clunk that you heard in my running it down the tracks. So as you saw in the video there, pulling the cover off of these trucks is really easy. They just snap off. These are actually pretty much identical to the Athearn truck. It looks like they pretty much copied the Athearn drivetrain when they built these, to the point that the Athearn axles and gears are a perfect fit. So this is a brand new Athearn axle and gear, and when you pull it apart, these just drop right in. So it's a very simple thing. Pull the covers off, they lift out, you slide the new ones in. Alternatively, you can buy separate gears like this, and you can reuse the original wheels. You can buy a set of gears and just put those in, and they just push together like that. So you've got options of how you want to do it. The easiest thing is to get the complete axle and gear sets, pull them out, put new ones in, make sure they're well lubricated, and you should be good to go. Lifting the body off of one of these Proto 2000s requires removing the couplers, which is just a Phillips screw. I would advise having a Phillips screwdriver and a pair of tweezers so you can grab the screw and not have it disappear somewhere in your room. And then the coupler with the gearbox slides out. So do that on both ends. And then the fuel tank comes off. It's just held on with double-sided tape. It's a bit of a tight pull, but it does pull off. And the reason you have to pull this off, at least on this locomotive, is because they've hidden a couple of screws behind there. So there are 2 more Phillips screws right here. Before I flip it over, I will show you there are behind this, these 2 parts of the double-sided tape, there are 2 slot head screws in there. And those, along with 2 more Phillips screws, so 1 right there and 1 right there, that screw, and these 2 slot head screws are what hold the big metal weight inside in place. So if you need to remove the weight to get at the trucks or at the motor itself, those are the 4 screws you need to remove, and then it will lift out. So when you first open up one of these locomotives from the factory, it will come with this little diode board that's for the directional lighting. It's actually screwed on to the weight, so you just remove 2 screws. And then this smaller circuit board that's actually just the plug is plugged into those 8 pins on here. So just wiggle them, unplug that. You won't be needing this. And then the 8-pin decoder plugs into here. Just take a look at the wire colors. You can see on here there's a red, blue, white, and a gray on the factory part, and those colors have to match up with this 8-pin plug from the decoder, because you could spin it around 180 degrees and then the wires don't match. So that's what you need to do to match up the wires. The lights, on the first locomotive that I had like this, I burned out the lights. I thought it needed a resistor. What I actually need to do was replace the lights completely, because when I put the decoder in that one, I didn't have the instruction manual. This new one was actually a new locomotive, and it tells you right in the instructions that if you're going to convert it to DCC, you need to replace the bulbs with something that can handle 12 volts. So these are the original bulbs that come with it. They will not handle the full power from a decoder. They're just little incandescent bulbs. So my suggestion is just get rid of them. And then I put in a couple of LEDs with resistors on them, and I just matched them up. There's a blue and a white wire going to the front one. So the blue is the typical decoder wiring. That is the common positive. There's a blue going to the front one. There's a blue going to the back one. The white is the negative for the front. The yellow is the negative for the rear light. So as long as you match up those colors, it should be fine. It's a little bit of a tangled mess to stuff everything back in here. I think that's often the biggest challenge with putting in decoders in some of these locomotives, is to just fit the decoder and all the wires back in here. So the light is here. The rear light is underneath this black cap at the back that's also removable. So I've put an LED there, an LED there, connected them to the existing light wires that came out of this little circuit board, and then you just plug the decoder in. And that's all there is to the decoder installation, other than bundling all of this up and getting it stuffed back in here. The final thing that I did on this locomotive is I also replaced the knuckle couplers that it came with, because they are not real KDs. There's some sort of plastic things that are supposed to work with KDs, and I find that they don't always couple reliably. So I put in proper metal ones in there, and they fit perfectly. They fit exactly the same way as the factory couplers. So as you can see, I got it running just fine. Got the decoder in it, had to replace all of the axles because the gears were cracked, replace the couplers, replace the bulbs with LEDs to make sure they don't burn out, because the original bulbs would have burned out right away as soon as I turned them on, because they can't handle the voltage. But anyway, I'm happy with it. It was a good eBay deal. I got it for a good price. Yeah, I had to do a little bit of work on it, but I'm happy with it. Here's its twin brother right here, number 160. I replaced the bulbs in that as well, so both of them, put that back on the track. So both of them are working just perfectly. And so I have 2 good GP7s in my fleet as well now. So I like getting these deals, and these old Proto 2000 GP7s are actually a pretty nicely detailed locomotive, and once you replace those cracked gears, they run really nicely as well. So I'm happy with it, and hopefully if anybody else is looking at one of these things and you notice it's crunching down the track, it's an easy fix. If you are putting a decoder in them, make sure you change the bulbs as well, because they're not going to last for very long. I find it a little weird that they put an 8-pin plug in the locomotive, so it's almost DCC ready, but the lights they put in it aren't good for DCC. So it seems like it would have been a bit of a weird design choice back then, but it was many years ago as well. So hey, who knows? Anyway, thanks for watching. Another lap around the layout. See you next time.